Hey guys, what is going on? Funky Music here. I've been asked quite a bit to update my Resto Druid guide. I've updated it twice, but I probably could use another update. So bear with me today. We're going to go over that a little bit. Pretty much everything I covered in the other videos is still prudent to this day. You're going to want to hit haste cap, obviously, depending on what spec you go. It's in my Druid guide. There's two different specs. There's the 18053 spec, and there's the 11060 spec, which I currently run for haste. The reason why haste cap is so important is because you want to get rejuvenation down to a global cooldown of 1 second. People are like, well, Funky, it says it's an instant cast. No, it's not an instant cast. While it is an instant cast, it does suffer from a cooldown on the global it suffers a cooldown before you can use it again. What we're trying to do is get it to a certain haste level so it's spammable on every global cooldown. Now I get a lot of questions. Well, what's the global cooldown? What's that mean? Blah blah blah. There's a 1 second. There's a 1 second delay between you can spam all you want, the same spell or whatever ability, but you can only use one ability every 1 second. That's where we want to get our rejuvenation down to. I'm not going to go into the real crazy things with haste. The 18053 spec uses Celestial. If I can remember the damn name, Celestial Focus, yes. Because once you're spec'd into it, you increase your total spell haste by 3%. That spec is used because you're at lower haste. The haste cap for that would be 735 haste. In my spec, it's 856 is the haste cap. So, yeah. I just want to go over the spec real quick. It's pretty self-explanatory, although I get a lot of people who they want to go into spec. I still see a lot of people speccing in Nature's Grace. And Nature's Grace, let's face it, pretty much everyone's doing 25-man content. So while some people do 10-man content, and there is room for argument that in 10-man content, Nature's Grace does have abilities that are useful. Don't get me wrong, but in 25-man content, Nature's Grace becomes pretty much trash. As long as you have a shaman in the group who has the haste totem and a ret paladin with haste, or you need to have a shaman and either a ret paladin or a boomkin in the raid to be totally haste cap. Excuse me, I'm suffering from a cold still, so if I start talking wrong or breathing weird, it's because I still have a stuffed up nose. But Nature's Grace, when you're in a raid and you have those buffs with you, Nature's Grace is absolutely useful. Or useless, excuse me, not useful. The reason behind this is because Nourish will already be capped at a 1 second global cooldown. The other reason behind that is Regrowth will be a 1.1 second cast. So basically the two heals that you're going to use this proc for, unless you're using Healing Touch, which I do not suggest that you use unless it's with the Nature Swiftness macro, they're not going to really benefit from it. 3 talent points to basically shave off 0.1 seconds on your Regrowth is not going to help at all. It's just a waste of talent points. I still see a lot of people rolling in this. Do not understand it. I don't know why you would go and get that talent. It's unnecessary when you're at the higher haste cap. It really is. A lot of this stuff is just self-explanatory in the balance tree. Nature's Splendor increases your Life Bloom spell and your Rejuvenation spell by 3 seconds. That's important. Nature's Mastery, Starfall Nourish, it has to do with healing. You want it. Moonglow, obviously. Regrowth, Rejuvenation spells. A lot of your healing spells increased. Genesis increased on your periodic spell healing. Rejuvenation. The spec is pretty much. It is what it is. There's a couple points you could probably play around with in here. If you wanted to move some out of Natural Perfection and go for something else, like if you, I don't know what you'd really throw it into. Not Improved Tranquility. If you wanted to throw it into, I guess, if you wanted to go to Nature's Grace, you possibly could from there, but it's really self-explanatory. The whole entire spec. I see a lot of people not getting Revitalize or not getting Living Seed. Living Seed is working now. Really important to have that. Revitalize, really important for your raid group. It's kind of must-haves. But I'm not going to go over the spec too quick. Like I said, it's just I'm just going to go over it really quick because my guide's on the forums. You guys know my spec. You can look it up. Armory Me. Glyphs. Glyphs is another big one that people mess up royally, and I don't understand it. I see tons of people using Rapid Rejuve and all kinds of weird-ass stuff. They don't use Swift Mend. I don't understand what people are doing. In a 25-man raid, you're going to want Wild Growth. Wild Growth and Rejuvenation are your bread and butter spells. Those are your number 1 and number 2 spells. You're going to want Wild Growth, obviously, because you can heal 1 additional target. That's huge. That's a lot of healing. Glyph of Swift Mend. Your Swift Mend no longer consumes a rejuve on the regrowth from the effect from the target. Very important to have that. It means you don't have to cast Rejuve, use Swift Mend, and then recast Rejuve. It saves you a global cooldown. Very important to have that. Third Glyph is optional. I see a lot of people using Nourish, which I don't really recommend unless it's on Lich King. People using Innervate, which is fine if you're burning through mana. Definitely use that. Or if you're using your Innervates on other people, because you're fine on mana, but you'd still like a little bit on the return. Innervate's good too. Glyph of Rejuvenation I use because it's more healing. I know how to manage my mana. I know what I'm doing. I'm here to maximize my healing to its fullest potential. And since most of the fights in Icecrown Citadel and on Halion in the Ruby Sanctum are AoE heavy fights, you're gonna want something like this. While your rejuvenation targets are below 50% health, you will heal them for an additional 50% health. Really amazing. Minor glyphs are self-explanatory: Glyph of the Wild, Glyph of Dash, and Glyph of Unburdened Rebirth. These should probably be almost in every spec you use. I don't know why you'd use anything else. Glyph of Dash, also important. Yeah. And then the spells. Like I said, the bread and butter spells for Restoration Druids are going to be Rejuvenation and your Wild Growth. Wild Growth, depending on the fight, should be up at almost every single time it's off cooldown. It's on a 6-second cooldown. You'll be using that almost every time. Rejuve, again, almost every time you can, because Rejuve is not only proccing tons of stuff for you, I mean, it's part of your 4 set. I mean, your Wild Growth and your Rejuve is... Your Wild Growth is your 2 set, and your Rejuve is your 4 set. So very important to have those things. It's also... Rejuve is also being proc... or helping proc Idol of the Black Willow. So... It's a no-brainer. I still see tons of druids who don't use Rejuvenation enough. Like, they have all the same stuff I do, and it'll be like their 4th casted spell, and I don't understand why. I mean, you're just not maximizing the potential of the spell and everything that comes with it. So, very important to have those two. Now, I get a lot of questions about Nourish and Regrowth. These 2 spells are basically your, I don't want to say your heaviest heals, because that would be Healing Touch, but again, stay away from this heal. It just, no. It takes too long to cast, it's too much of a mana burn. No, do not use this hell. Your Paladins and your Shamans will beat you every single time. The only reason why this would be good is if you can use Nature's Swiftness and use Healing Touch. But Nourish and Regrowth, when should I use them? What should I do with them? I prefer Regrowth over Nourish, although Nourish does crit and hit harder. Regrowth has the potential to hit as hard as Nourish when it crits. However, its non-criticals usually don't hit as hard as Nourish's static. So, and I'm not going to get the details of all that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just go cast Regrowth a whole bunch of times, cast Nourish, and see which heals more on the actual heal itself. Not the... What Regrowth is great for doing, though, is putting the long, sustained hot on a target. 27-second hot. Great for tanks. I use it quite a bit on that. Whenever Heroism's out, I prefer to use Regrowth over Nourish, even though Regrowth is a bit more of a mana burn. Like I said, I know how to control my mana, I know what I'm doing. So I like Regrowth in that regard because it actually does do a lot more healing for me. Because not only is it hitting pretty daggone hard, it's also putting that nice big long hot that I can use for a Swift Mend just in case I need it. So in Heroism times, I'm using Regrowth. There are times where Nourish is needed. And I do find myself using Nourish quite a bit. You know, it's Nourish is so situational, although you have to be careful with it. You almost have to have you do have to have a hot on the target for Nourish to really blossom and show its true effectiveness. So that's very important. Just nourishing a target without having it hotted is not going to produce any kind of... in an extreme emergency situation, you're better off using Regrowth if the target does not already have a hot on him, rather than trying to cast Nourish on a target that doesn't have a hot on him. So it's very situational. Druids have a lot of situational spells. A lot of people just think it's just rejuve and wild growth. That can't be further from the truth. People are idiots, and I'm old. Let's look at Life Bloom. Life Bloom is great for your clear casting procs. Let's see if I can actually get one to go here. I should probably Hurricane. See if I can't get a clear... Well, I actually need to kill something to probably get this to proc, but... If I can actually get a clear casting proc... Maybe sometime... Oh, there we go. Clear casting procs. When you're clear casting, you kind of want to use... If you're having mana issues, I highly suggest Life Bloom in this situation. Life Bloom... Let's go over that. So I'm using my clear casting on Life Bloom. Now, the reason why... I get a lot of questions about Life Bloom. Why should I use it? When should I use it? How do you keep it rolling on tanks? What are you doing with Life Bloom, Funky? I don't use Life Bloom a whole lot. I only use it on my clear casting procs, or if a tank's really getting smashed quite a bit, and I know other healers are busy, if I know they're doing something, I'll throw Life Bloom on. But it's such a huge mana burn to throw it up there. You really, really, really don't want to use Life Bloom unless there's a clear casting proc. The reason for that is just it's 780 mana. It's a huge burn. What the clear casting proc is going to do, though, let's go ahead and go to Restoration, and I will show you. If I can remember where the stupid spell is. There it is. Moment of Clarity. Basically, it makes the next cost of your ability, your next healing spell or offensive ability, it reduces the cost by 100%. So basically, you're getting Life Bloom for free. Now, the great thing about Life Bloom is once it's casted. It heals. It does a hot, and then once it blooms, it does a big heal, and it returns half of the mana cost back to the Druid. So basically, it's costing you nothing, and you get an extra 370 mana back for free. So if you can really time up your clear casting procs with Life Bloom, you're actually going to be getting mana back. Now I get a lot of Druids who I see rolling weird gems specs because I go all the time. You got to manage your mana. Life Bloom is probably the #1 management of your mana that you could possibly do. Very important to manage that, and keep an eye out for those clear casting procs. Huge. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and get into a number of mistakes I see with Restoration Druids. And I've gone over this in previous videos, but I just want to reiterate it again. I see people using the wrong meta. I see people using spirit gems, crit gems. I've seen all kinds of stupid gems in gear. You do not need spirit gems. I don't care if you gem all spirit. It's not going to help you. It's not going to regen that much mana. Okay, let's get that clear and out of the boat, or out of the gate right now. Gemming any kind of spirit is wrong. You should not be gemming any spirit whatsoever at high end gear. Lower end gear, I guess if you want to, you could do whatever you want, really. It's not going to matter to me. Maybe you need a little bit of extra mana return, but that spirit, even if you gem full spirit, you're not going to get the mana return. You're not going to notice it at all, I promise you. Putting 1 or 2 gems of spirit in here is not going to do jack diddly squat for you. The only gems you should be using are Spell Power and Spell Power and Haste. Obviously, you're going to need Spell Power Haste to hit caps. Again, the haste rating at my spec for the cap is 856. And I think I use, what, 2? Yeah. Spell Power Haste Gems. And Sokka bonuses is another one. Funky, what about Sokka bonuses? Sokka bonuses are complete and utter trash. And what the hell is going on? I'm streaming, so everyone's like showing up. Sokka bonuses are complete and utter trash. You can get them where you can. Do not worry about getting them in every slot. Obviously, my cape, I don't have it. My chest, I don't have it. If you give up, if you're using something else in that gem, let's say you want to hit that haste, you want to get that gem filled. It's not, if you use a straight spell power gem, a 23 spell power, and let's cut it, make it a spell power haste gem so I can get the Sokka bonus. No. You're not going to increase your overall spell power. You're not going to help yourself out by hitting all Sokka bonuses. Just hit them where you can, guys. Other than that, avoid hitting the Sokka bonuses. That's really about it when it comes to this. I think I've covered this enough in all my other videos. I just want to kind of go over this and reiterate it again because people seem to forget what I say, and I have a lot of questions, so now I'm just making these videos so I can just direct them to this and just be like, go here. Because I'm a lazy old fart.